Brethren, family and friends, it is once again my privilege and pleasure to talk to you through this video number 4 in the series that we have been making as we go through the current alert level lockdowns in the various parts of New Zealand. I want to on this occasion acknowledge that our Auckland brethren and their families continue in a total lockdown at alert level 4, and I certainly acknowledge the challenges that brings to you as individuals, as Freemasons and as family members. We know that you're doing the heavy lifting for the rest of the country on this occasion, and I hope, like everybody else, that you come out of that lockdown as soon as practically possible, and I look forward with interest to the government's announcement on that. Our thoughts are with you all. As I make these videos, I'm reflecting on the changing environment that we live in at the moment, and the great amount of information and misinformation that continues to spread throughout New Zealand. We have always been very clear that we will follow the government's rules and their guidelines, and that served us extremely well during the last year. On this occasion, we have decided to revisit our guidelines and our rules, and some lodges will have already received those now and have circulated them to the brethren. But what I would like you to do is to visit our Grand Lodge website if you haven't seen them and download them from the COVID-19 page on our website. These guidelines served us extremely well last year. We have modified them now slightly to take into account the modifications that the government have made to the various alert levels. So they are slightly different, and you'll see that the effective date on the current one is scheduled for the 20th of September. So we're not quite there yet, but it is scheduled for change on the 20th of September. Have a close look at that, because as for before, lodges are able to meet at alert levels 1 and 2. That does not change. The only difference is that the lodges must revisit their lodge mitigation plan for the risks that they have based on the current criteria that the government have made clear to everybody. I look around New Zealand and those areas that are in alert level 2 at the moment, and encouraged by the fact that schools are open, restaurants are open, educational institutions are open, libraries are open, restaurants are back to normal, but all following the rules. So therefore there is no reasons why lodges cannot meet and continue as normal. But our difference this time is that it must be the call of the lodge. I want every lodge to look at the new guidelines that we have published, revisit the criteria that they have in place based on their lodge profile, which could be the size of a lodge room, the age of the brethren, the way that they operate, the work that they have to do, and the facilities that they have as a lodge, and decide whether it is appropriate for them to open in alert level 1 and 2 as they stand at the moment, and to revisit that risk mitigation plan and submit it to the District Grand Master. That is important because we want a new reset based on the new criteria that are in place. For example, last year we were allowed at alert level 2 to have 100 people at a gathering. At the moment that is limited to 50, but having said that, it could change next week, we just don't know. So your lodge mitigation plan for the risk must take into account the way that we are operating and the needs of your brethren and the requirements of your brethren. So please do that bit of work to make sure that you get it right. One of the major impacts that we will have, and I made this very clear last time when I spoke to you all, is that the QR code sign must be at all venues, and we must use it because it's now mandatory. We must scan in, and if you do not have a phone that takes in the ability to scan the QR code, then you must sign the register that each lodge is required to hold, and make sure that it is held for at least 2, perhaps 3 weeks after the event. This is very, very important. Hand sanitizing and hygiene and the way that food is prepared is no different to what we had for last year with alert levels 1 and 2. So to a great degree, it's business as usual. There is the other additional requirement in our plans at the moment for the wearing of face masks, and I encourage lodges to actually put that in to their risk mitigation plan. The government have made it very clear that in public places face masks must be worn, and whilst we could argue that lodges are of a private nature, the best practice we could follow is to say that if you wish to wear a face mask and to look after your brethren, build that into your risk mitigation plan. It is a way of forming protection, because we do know from our experts that have told us that this virus is transmitted by an aerosol mechanism through droplets as opposed to surface touching as we had last year with the COVID-19 under alert level 2 for the plans that we had in place last year. But touching is still important, so follow the rules that we have in terms of close contact, social distancing, the way that we operate. But let's try and get our business back to normal in terms of Freemasonry back in the lodge room and follow those rules. We're no different to a school. We're no different to any other place where the public are entering into. All the difference is that we must follow the rules and do as we are told. So look, go back, have a look at the plan that you had in place last year, tweak it based on the current guidelines and make sure that is appropriate for your lodge. Submit it to your district grandmaster and he will then approve it or recommend back to you any other changes that you may need to make. But do that before you actually open your lodge. The information that I put out earlier this week said that the lodges would remain closed under alert level 2. But I will be making an announcement next week after the government have made their announcement on any changes to the alert levels that will actually say that lodges can or cannot operate under alert levels 1 or 2. But I am very keen that we see ourselves as no different to any other part of New Zealand, and the challenge for us is to live with the problem that we have at the moment in terms of this virus. It's going to be with us for a long time, and I know that we're working with vaccinations to mitigate that. But it is there, it is present, and it may be with us for a long, long time. That being the case, our plans must reflect best practice for our brethren and those that come into our lodge rooms. So no more than that on this video, brethren. Follow the rules, have a look at the mitigation plan that you have in place, and your lodge is to make a decision and talk to your district grandmaster. And I do thank you for your patience and your commitment over this period of time. I thank you, brethren.